Hey everyone, welcome to Sunday Nights with Faye Seidler. It's me, your girl, Faye. It's Sunday night. We're going to get into the show. For opening news, what I have coming up is our first event. It is going to be nominating someone for the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. Deadline for that's going to be January 1st, and it's for youth, organizations, individuals that represent the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The actual event will be on January 20th in the Fargo Theater, hosted by Fred Dissidents, and it's been a fantastic event every year. Please consider nominating someone for the work that they do. That nomination and that appreciation are as valuable as getting recognized, so please do that. I want to give a heads up on a conference coming up. Save the date for our Consensus Council's Restorative Justice Conference on April 9th to 10th. The reason I'm telling you about this months in advance is because right now, if you want to actually register for that event to do a training, you can do so. The more that we are equipped with conflict resolution skills, the better we all do, especially in the nonprofit world. On my weekly report, I have a lot of different jobs hosted. I want people to know about that. These are really great opportunities. Even if you're not interested in them yourself, you probably know someone who is. Maybe you have an intern or a volunteer who could actually use money for the work that they do. These are all jobs focusing on helping people out in some way. I always look for jobs that you can feel good about, that you contribute to the world with. So just follow me. I try to post on LinkedIn and Facebook whenever I find these opportunities, but I always have them hosted on the weekly report. I just want to give you a heads up on that. To continue my segment from last week, Trans Corner, I don't intend to do this every week. It's just when there's a ton of stories on trans people, well, I'll let you know about them. The first is it appears that the military budget bill that is excluding trans kids from being able to access medically necessary care is good. They're going to do that. So military families are now going to have to get private insurance plans to cover this. It's unclear. This kind of thing disrupts our military service as well as our veterans and active military duty individuals. So 0 for the US, 1 for people who don't like trans folks. Good score, good world. Disney is cutting one of their storylines from an upcoming, I think, series featuring trans characters, as they said it was too difficult for some of their viewers to deal with. They aren't cutting the character themselves, just the storyline focusing on it, which is just silly. Like, trans people exist, it's fine. Like, you can have stories on trans people. The NCAA president says that there's only 10 trans athletes that they're aware of competing in their division out of, I think, like 10,000, 15,000 different athletes. So trans individuals continue to not really be a problem. And the incredible amount of effort that we are seeing to demonize or attack trans folks is weird. It's cringe. It's unfortunate. In the recent Supreme Court case where we're hearing about if trans kids are going to be able to access their medically necessary care, one of the interesting things that's come up is look at detransition rates. As part of the Supreme Court case, those trying to fight to remove this care suggest that detransition regret rate is at 85%. Those defending the care say it's at 1%. The judges ask, well, who is right? This is an alarmingly different number. And it depends. It depends when you're looking at it. If you're looking at trans care in the 1960s to the early 2000s, and you're not looking at actually trans people, it's pretty high that people don't end up transitioning. If you look at modern studies, modern diagnostic criteria, then the regret rate is very low. Trans care has improved significantly over the decades, and we have seen that because it is like every other medicine. So that's something that's been prevalent in the court. To end with some good news after all of the unfortunate news is that Montana has allowed trans individuals to correctly identify on their driver's license. Their Supreme Court, I think, either didn't hear the case or the appeal case, or made some primary injunction on it. I don't know offhand, but it's good news. It means that trans Montanans are more likely to be able to maneuver across their life without experiencing harassment for their identity documents being incorrect. So there's also some other stuff in my weekly report, generally about all the bills that have happened in 2024 that are in some way targeting trans individuals. Aaron Reed, or Aaron in the Morning, the most prolific trans journalist, award-winning, mentioned that there's 120 bills targeting trans folks already, mostly in Texas. Keep in mind, trans folks at the high end are 2% of the population, at the low end, 0.5 to 1%. So the amount of attack on this minority group is terrible. Like, it's completely overblown. It is ridiculous in so many ways. I know to say that as someone who is trans is like, yeah, I mean, obviously I'm against bills that are attacking trans people, but I also am someone who does a lot of research, works in the medical field, attends conferences on the medical care, and generally knows what I'm talking about in these issues. And we continue to concede ground to political rhetoric and prejudice and bias, and we aren't standing up for people, for humans, for rights, for people to live in safety, to be themselves. While trans individuals remain an acceptable sacrifice for a lot of people, being a smaller part of our population, every time we concede ground to allow more abuse to happen to trans folks, we open up the capacity for us all to experience more abuse. The individuals who are championing taking away care for trans folks are the same people who are trying to take away vaccines or to not vaccinate their kids. When we give ground to this movement to disrupt trans care or medicine or rights, we give ground to disrupt all people's medicine, care, and rights. So as we continue to lose trans folks in this capacity, it just opens a door for more and more populations to be harmed in some capacity. So that's more in trans news. As that is a bummer, I will say again that we are still much better off we were 10 years ago. And while all this stuff tends to be scary, there's so much more individuals out there fighting for medical rights, autonomy, research, science, and all of that. So I do continue to believe it will get better. I think it will be something to survive today, but tomorrow still has a lot of hope. Speaking of hope, moving into our politics news, free school lunch effort continues. It's one of the most well-organized efforts that I've seen for helping out our kiddos to eat. So just some stuff on that. You can check it out. I also was part of a legislative training, effectively. Prairie Action put together a training with League of Women Voters to explain how our legislative process works. And there is a panel of a couple of speakers, myself included, talking about how to get involved around different key issues across our state. That will be available on their YouTube eventually, not yet. So I'll just share the YouTube that they have so you could potentially see it coming up. Talking in our health, social worker education news, Healthy Foundation put out their report, what they've done all year long. It's an incredible organization that has a lot of partners across our state, focusing on things like vaccinations. And we'll explain why that's important in another story or two. I also want to let you know that state radio now allows for transfer to 911 callers to 988 services. So that can go both ways. Basically, if you call 911 because there's a mental health crisis happening, they can put you in touch with First Link, our 988 call center, if it's more appropriate. First Link 988, if you call that because you're in a mental health crisis, but it turns out that's happening because someone is about to die, because they've been stabbed or something, they will connect you to 911. Call what makes the most sense. These are professionals that will direct you where appropriate, but it's good that there's more inter-department communication on this because sometimes it's appropriate to have emergency medical services. Sometimes you don't need that and you just need someone to talk to. So it's a good thing that we're doing. I actually found out about this last month in the welfare check training that I helped to organize and put together. Very small. It was mostly the Cass Clay Coalition, but I definitely was someone saying we should have it. But yeah, it's really good news. In other news, North Dakota's population is growing. There's an article from Indy Monitor. Something to keep in mind with this is it's population data is interesting and weird. It's kind of what you want it to be. And a lot of times whenever it goes up, everyone in North Dakota wants to say that, oh, we must be doing everything well. That's not always going to be the case. And you have to compare it to other states. You have to compare it to how we're doing. You have to look at the timeline of where our populations are, as well as where our populations are going. Typically speaking, what is increasing is our metro areas as our rural areas continue to decline. We might not be gaining key service sector folks like those working in education, healthcare, social services. And I think we continue to see shortages in those departments, which are critical. And even though our population may be going up, we are less able to serve the people who are here, especially when they want to raise a family or, make their life here. Another issue is if they're coming here because they're desperate to find work, well, they are only here until they find a better offer in a different state. So while migration can be higher, while we have a higher net population, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are in a good position or that we even have good policies right now. That's what I always like to just kind of put the water on the coals, I think is an expression. I don't know if that works or not, about population size. I don't know why I'm fighty about it, but I had to suffer so many years of people talking about us being abundant state, and it was because of the oil boom in the 2010s, and our population spiked by like 10% increase, and then it was like 0.00102 or something like that percentage. So it's just like we had 3 good years and then like 8 bad years, and people are like, "Oh, check out this 10-year period that was fantastic." So I don't know. It grinds my gears, specifically this. So like, I don't end. So like, I don't end. In terrible news, it looks like vaccination rates for North Dakota are very low. Only 65% of our infants have updated vaccinations, and that's not just for things like COVID, but I think everything, like the full gambit of it. I think polio is something we talk about a lot. So this is terrible. This is life-threatening. This is life-impacting. If kids aren't getting vaccinations, they're open to terrible diseases that can kill them or impact them for the rest of their life. I think you could take a moral high ground to tell parents who are doing this that they are being reckless or putting their kids' life in danger. They are, but that's not the way to make people change their mind about this kind of thing. And we have to address the problem of the lack of trust individuals have within our healthcare system in general. And we have to find ways to build trust and invite people in and create a more stable society so folks are not abused by conspiracies online that hurt them and their family. So it's important to look at this with a compassionate lens and to make sure that we continue to strive for stability, education, science, all that kind of stuff. But it's scary. And the less vaccinations that we have across the area, the more individuals that are susceptible to all kinds of terrible diseases now. In good news, the North Dakota Health and Human Services Suicide Prevention Resource page. I've heard this a couple times, like to share it occasionally. It has a lot of great resources. There's a lot of good data on our North Dakota Health and Human Services pages in general. So just keep those in mind, check them out. They have a really wonderful resource provider list. And then lastly, I just want to talk about the family. There is a memorial service for those we've lost due to homelessness in this area that happened, I think, just a night or two ago. I didn't even hear about this event, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have obviously shared it with everyone. But it seemed like a time for people to mourn and reflect on some of the harm that can happen for people who are experiencing homelessness. It isn't easy. It's not easy in North Dakota, and our winters can kill people. Our summers can kill people. Some people, I think, have this romantic idea of homelessness where it's like not that bad and you can like go get some more meals and be toasty around like I don't know, like a barrel fire or something. And it is brutal and awful and terrible in unimaginable ways for so many reasons. And it's so hard to get out of it. I've experienced this myself, not to the degree other people have. But there are times I didn't have a home. There are times that I had to couch surf to be safe. And had I not had specific opportunities in my life, by chance, I might not even be here. And that's the impact homelessness can have. It puts you at such a high risk of every other bad thing that can happen. And as we continue to hear about our city hall, Fargo City Hall, as their efforts for Commissioner Turnberg to, I don't know, create some kind of fantasy policy based on nothing in hopes it might do anything, as advocates continue to have to show up and tell her no, it's really critical that we listen to our actual advocates who know what they're talking about, who have decades of this experience, and know that we have to lead these conversations with humanity and compassion to get anywhere with them. That's all I have for that. The two things I'm going to talk about is going to be a charity stream coming up and a new show thing I'm doing for the legislative session called The Pulse with Faye Seidler. So hopefully this was a good start to the end of the year. And I hope you have a good holiday, whatever that might be coming up. I know that'll be next week. And yeah, bye. All right, so I am doing a charity stream on Christmas on December 25th from 3 to 11 p.m. I'll be playing Elden Ring up here. It's a Dark Souls game, if that means anything to you. And I will be doing a charity stream. I'll be donating $1 every time I die in that game, and $10 for every boss that I beat, and that's going to be going to YouthWorks. As promised, I've been talking about this for a couple months now, but I've always wanted to do streaming to make myself available to allow this kind of space during holidays that can be harder times for people, just so there's always that place for individuals to go to. I know that there is an infinitude of things you can do online. There are so many people you can talk to, but where I think I'm creating a space that's a little bit more special is that I invite a North Dakota audience to where I'm at. So the hope is that the people who watch me to follow that stream, who talk during it, they're other North Dakotans, right? And even if we're not that connected by our city or, the regions we are in North Dakota, it kind of is a little bit more special, right, than just anyone in the entire world. So I Twitch stream that and I invite people to join me, to chat, to hang out. I want to create a safe space for that and to just give people an option if they don't have anything else going on. I don't think I have much more to say than that, just that I'll continue to do this during holidays and stressful times. I'll probably, if I'm doing stuff like this, make it a charity situation like I am so I can donate to a cool place. If you would like to also donate too, let me know and I can tell you like what the damage was if you want to follow like what I'm doing here. I don't think it'll be too much. I think it'll probably be like $100, $200. But right now, YouthWorks does have a match campaign, so everything we donate to them will be doubled, I believe, until the end of the year. It might be some variation of that, like every $2 makes $1. I don't know offhand, but there's something like that happening. I can tell you that. And just while I'm here, I also do streaming on Friday nights now, where I spend 3 hours just kind of playing through a game. And again, it's just to create a space for people to show up. They can talk to me. You can talk to me about activism or literally anything. But I'm there to create a space that can be warm and fun and inviting and to make you feel less alone, especially for the people who might be in rural North Dakota and they don't really have much going on. So please share this with folks you think would benefit. I've always wanted to create a space like this, and I'm kind of happy that I'm finally able to do it. And I like that I can like also use it to promote things like YouthWorks or to create reasons to create donation campaigns. So yeah, I just want to let you know that's coming up. Elden Ring, it's a fun game. Watch me die. Yeah. Okay, so I will be doing a show every night during the legislative session starting January 1st. The official session starts on the 7th, but they start running and there can be bills that go through the chambers as early as that Friday or that Thursday. I will be inviting people to let me know what's going on, and my plan is to only spend like 5 minutes giving you very short details about the big stuff that's happened, the big stuff coming up. I will be focusing specifically on the issues I care about, so things like suicide prevention, mental health, access to resources, labor rights, things like that, that are occurring. Anyone from individual organizations can send stuff for me to promote. As long as they align with those values, I will put them on my the Pulse with Faye Seidler. I felt like during last session in 2023, there was not nearly enough reporting on what was going on within our legislature, and there really wasn't a lot of connections between the lawmakers and the actual community. There were lobbyists, there were nonprofits and people involved, but it really just kind of was super siloed into the government like capital, and I really want to create an opportunity for people to be empowered, to know how to get involved, to know how to talk to their lawmakers and care more about our government and government process. I think it's really unfortunate some people are like, oh, I don't care about politics. Like, it determines how our state treats everyone. It determines our funding, our goals and priorities. It determines if kids get fed. Like, you don't have to care about partisan politics or the terrible culture war nonsense that we have to deal with, but the political process is our society. It's how we've determined we want to have a society. And when we aren't invested in it, when we aren't holding our lawmakers accountable or letting them know what we want to see in our state suffers. And it gets bullied by people with special interests or lobbying groups, and it doesn't reflect us as North Dakotans anymore. The more that we pay attention, the more that we're going to have a reasonable government and not see the nonsense that happened in 2023 that could still happen this year. So this is what I will be doing with the Pulse, is to um, give life to North Dakota politics and make it fun. I don't know, do something. I feel another thing is it's just like a slog to read through some of like the articles in politics, or some of the, podcasts, political think tank people talk about it. And I mean, I'm probably going to be pretty sterile in my delivery, but like, when I get bored, I start making jokes, I think is the best thing to say about me. But I want you to know that's coming up. I will be developing stuff for that for my website probably towards the start of right before the end of the year, because I'll be starting in the first. And you can just follow me. If you're ever following me in any way, if you're watching this show, you'll be aware of it. And then it'll happen every night at 10 p.m. So I don't have it super structured right now. I have a lot of ideas and concepts, and it's not too difficult to put them together and to make it happen. So just know I'll be talking about our legislative session every night at 10 p.m. For the rest of the legislative and until like April or May. So that's what I got. I hope you have good holidays, and if you want to join me for my run of Elden Ring on Wednesday, I will be glad to have you. You have a good rest of your night, everyone. Well, thank you everyone for watching my show. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a good rest of your week. I hope we see you back here next week. Just want to give some thank yous to all the folks here who contributed to the show, who made it all a great time and informed us about the cool stuff they're doing. He will be my outro probably for a while until I choose to change it. You all have a good day. Bye.